In this endgame, I have the black pieces, and my opponent is actually David Arnett again. Remember the kid who beat me in that last round of the first national championships? Well, this game was played a few months later. That one was in May of 1985. This game was in March of 86, before the Jeff Sauer game. At this point, actually, Dave and I had become best friends. I moved to a school, Dalton School, in New York City, and he and I were the top two players on the team. We were hanging out together, playing sports. In this game, we were matched up in a tournament. I had the black pieces. I have a slightly better endgame, and I want you to see how I convert it. I was very comfortable in this kind of position. So let me break this position down for you for a minute. I have two bishops, which is very good on an open board. My bishop is eyeing his knight on c3. His bishop on e4 is guarding his rook on c2. Tactically, your alarm bells should be ringing here. Maybe I have something. You see, his pawn on e3 is unguarded. I played the very strong move, rook e8. You see my threat here? If it's black's move, what would you do? Remove the defender. Very good. His knight on c3 is guarding his bishop on e4, so if I take the knight, I win the bishop. The idea of rook e8 is that his bishop will have to move, because indirectly I'm attacking it. And when his bishop moves, it opens up my attack on the e3 pawn. This is actually a skewer. I'm attacking a weaker pawn through a stronger bishop. After rook e8, he played bishop c6, and what did I play? No, that's not the best move. Try again. Exactly. Rook takes e3. Very good. I'm up a pawn. I've got two bishops, and I'm up a pawn. Now, we've already learned in the endgame we have to keep focused, present. Don't make any mistakes. Don't take the endgame for granted. Keep on maximizing your position. Stop the opponent's counterplay. Trade down because we're up material. These are the principles we have to have in mind. Dave played knight d5. What would you do now? I have to move my rook because it's threatened, right? Think about the principle of trading. When we're ahead in material like I am now, we want to trade down. So what's the most principled decision? This is the idea I want you to explore mostly in this endgame. Principles. Playing by the principles. Here, my rook's attacked. I have to defend it. I also want to trade down. Put those themes together. What's the best move? Rook e2, exactly. If the white rook moves, I take the a2 pawn. He has to trade down. I've simplified a little bit. An excellent way to convert the advantage when I'm up material. Rook takes e2, bishop takes e2. Now he played king f2. Okay, our bishop is threatened, we have to move it. What should I do? This is easy, a natural move, bishop c4. Getting out of the way, with tempo, attacking a pawn. He defends it, knight b4. Now remove the defender. His knight on b4 is defending his pawn on a2. Kick it out of the way. I played a5. If the knight moves, I take the pawn on a2. And now Dave played bishop d5. So in fact, the move a5 forced bishop d5, which traded down once more. You see how I'm converting my advantage? Trading material constantly. I played bishop takes d5, knight takes d5. Now look at the pawn structure. I have a dark squared bishop, so I want to lock his pawns on dark squares. I also want to activate my king. These are the principles. Put those principles together, find the best move. What should black play? Exactly. My best move is f5. The pawn on a5 is fine where it is. Now I've pinned down his pawn on g3 to a dark square. and his pawn on h2 is also in a dark square. I've also opened up the room for my king to come into the center. King f7 to e6. This is excellent. Here he played knight f4, and I played king f7, bringing the king into the game. Activity. Notice the power of this bishop. If he ever attacks my pawn on a5, in just one move, I can defend it. It can move all the way from the king's side to all the way on the queen's side. Again, remember the theme. If we have an endgame with pawns on both sides of the board, a bishop is a little bit stronger than a knight. He played h4. And now I played bishop h6. Basically, I guess I was testing him here. Will he move the knight? Will he not? If he plays something like knight d5, the game goes on, no problem. I'd continue to activate my king. King e6, bring it into the struggle. Dave played a4. Black to play here. What would you do? Okay, if your instinct was not to take the knight, I can't really blame you. I've told you that a bishop is a little bit better than a knight in this kind of endgame where pawns are on both sides of the board. The competing principle is that you want to trade down, simplify, when you're up material. In this position, the king and pawn endgame is winning by force. I played bishop takes f4, simplifying once again. G takes f4, king e6. Dave has to bring his king in, king e3, and I play king d5, a dominant kingside position. Dave played king d3, black to move. What was my idea here? Here Dave is in a position, once again, of zugzwang. Anywhere he moves his king will allow me in. In this situation, I can't get into c4 or d4 or e4. So if it's my move, if I have to move my king, he'll move his king. If I have to move my king, he'll move his king. So if, for example, this was the position, a small change, but a critical detail, this would actually be a draw. If I have to move my king, he moves his. I have no way to get in. Back and forth. Back and forth. He shoulders me away. The key in this situation is that it's my move. All I have to do is waste a move to gain the opposition. When you finish this course, I strongly recommend that you turn to my endgame course, where I discuss the opposition in great depth. In this case, I'll define it very simply. When two kings are horizontally opposing one another with one square in between, the person whose move it is not has the opposition. So in this situation, if it's his move, if he moves his king, I can enter. If he moves his king this way, I can enter. I have the opposition. If it's my move, I move and he shoulders me away. I move and he shoulders me away. I move and he can shoulder me away. He has the opposition. The key idea when your opponent has the opposition is to waste a move. And here, I'm the only one who can waste a move, which is why this endgame is winning. The winning move here is very simple. Take a moment, put everything I've just told you together, and figure out how black can win the game. h6, exactly. A simple pawn move, losing time, and winning the game. White has to move king c3 or king e3. If he plays c3, I can make a choice. I can either play king e4, jumping in and taking that pawn, or I can play king c5. He would have to play king b3, king d4, shouldering him away. He plays king a3, I play king c3, shouldering him away once again, and then I just get this pawn. Once I win this pawn, my idea is to run my king to the king side, let him take my queenside pawn, I get this pawn, I can win the other pawn, and I just make queens, no problem. Another option would have been king e4. Let's calculate that out. After king e4, king takes f4, king b5. Now what should I do? Right, I just move my king out of the way. He takes this pawn, and then let's calculate the race. I queen first. He comes down. And now it's my move. No problem. In this situation, I can just defend the queening square. I can blockade with my queen if I want to. I can even give up my queen for this pawn, take his remaining pawn with my king, and make a new queen, completely winning. So in this kind of position, the simplest move, h6, wins the game, because he's paralyzed. He's in Zugzwang. Dave played king e3, I played king c4, and he resigned. There's nothing he can do. I can take the a4 pawn now, and black wins the game. The simplicity of this endgame technique is very important to understand. Every move I made was governed by a principle. Trading down, the skewer, removing the defender, activate my king, paralyze his pawns on the same color square as my bishop, trade down again, activate my king further, Zugzwang.